How you doing, everybody? Thanks for stopping by and joining us today for another Rollin' Over the Hill right here on the Live to Roll channel. And thanks for you to being part of our Live to Roll family. I'd also like to take this time to thank our sponsors, mobility professionals and urology professionals. As I always say, they're a great and helpful group of experts that are very much part of our community and can help you with all your mobility and rehab equipment needs, as well as their urological needs. So a big thanks to them for sponsoring Live to Roll. On today's show, Glenn Gregos will be joining us. He has a spinal cord injury and will be discussing his journey as a spinal cord injury survivor, aging with a disability. Please make sure to include your questions and comments and views in the chat, and don't forget to hit the like button. How you doing, everybody? My name is Robert Soto. I'm a T12 spinal cord injury from a motorcycle racing accident 50 years ago. And now let's get started. Here's my co-host Bobby. What's going on?
Not much. Thanks for the introduction. Hope everyone's doing well. Thanks for joining us at another edition of Rolling Over the Hill. And I'm excited for our guest today. I met him, a month ago for the first time. And he had approached me about my hand cycle and told me he had been watching the show and following us. And then I got to show him the hand cycle. So it sparked up a good conversation. But I thought, Robert, there was nobody I was going to find, hurt longer than you. But we found one. And
Yeah,
Greg,
that's right.
is 1 year post more than you. So take
Yeah.
it away, Glenn.
Hey, my name is Glenn Gregos. I'm a T2 paraplegic circa 1973, so I'm in my 51st year. Robert's a little bit older than me, but I got a little more time in the chair than him. So it's great to
That's
be here
right.
with you all dudes.
Yeah. I think
And
combined the combination of us three together, what Bobby and I were mentioning earlier between us is 136 years of post-injury experience here.
Wow, and we weren't supposed to last all that long, folks. Here we are.
yeah, and I feel like the baby in the house. Like maybe I feel like the youngster or something. So, but
Well,
glad
I'm
to have
glad to
you
have
here,
Glenn.
Glenn.
Yep.
Go
Yeah, and
ahead,
I
Rick.
also was a motorcycle racing accident like you, but I was a desert rat, Robert.
Yeah, yeah. I know we've talked about it at some of the events and things like that. We bumped into each other and stuff like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's just nice because basically what we and I know you've been a viewer of the show, and Bob and I discussed about the aging with a disability piece. So it's not just I mean it's intended for us as we get older, and we just happen to be getting getting there. But it's mostly because there's a lot of people that get hurt, injured uh, young. So I mean, there's kids that are 30 years in a chair, and they're not that old yet, but they got that 30-year mark. So the aging piece kind of goes with experience, age, and it kind of is a blend of that. So I'm just glad to have you here, and this way we can kind of share stories and uh, get us
Yeah,
started here by just getting.
and like Glenn said, we weren't supposed to last this long. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
now that we
yeah,
are, and with good medicine and good doctors these days, and knowing our what our health is these days, and can take better care of ourselves and last a little bit longer.
And with
yeah,
better
yeah.
cushions and better wheelchairs and everything. That's just a quick comment. I was 15 and a half years old when I got my accident, so I was pretty young. And
Yeah.
there's been a lot of changes since then. And I think the biggest thing that I see now, being older with a disability, is getting the cross pollination of information with other people with a disability. It's something I didn't do for many years, but it's really important. And particularly from this show, I've learned a lot that's helped me at this stage now. So
Well,
Yeah.
that's great,
we're
even for
yeah,
someone
we're
with
never
a
too
veteran.
we're, we're never too
Never too
old to
old to
get
learn.
more good information.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, I want to definitely get into your story, Glenn, but first we're going to give a little shout out to our sponsors if you want to take that away, Robert.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'd like to take this time to thank mobility professionals and urology professionals. Mobility professionals will handle all your wheelchair, mobility, rehab equipment needs. They're based here in Southern California and provide services for the Southern California region. Their sister company, Urology Professionals, is a national company. They can ship catheters and urological supplies to all over the country. So if you are in need of their services, give them a call. Let them know that you saw and heard of them here on Live to Roll, Rollin Over the Hill. Dean is a big part of the Rollin Over the Hill family. He's been on our show a couple of times, and he's embedded into the community along with his the owner of Mobility Pros, Don, and they participate in all the events out there. So they're good people to have on our team. So check them out and let them know you're looking for equipment needs or urological needs. All right, Bobby.
Yeah. So Glenn, so I know you mentioned started out at 15 and a half. Do you want to give us a little back story to all about you?
Sure. I was starting in 10th grade. I was in the first semester of 10th grade and used to race in the desert like every other weekend out in District 37. So you're out in Lucerne and
Yeah.
Mojave and everything. And went out for a weekend. It was, I think, it was like the first race of the year or something. And was racing a hare and hound, which is an 80-mile race, like two 40-mile loops around the desert. And there's a starting line, and usually you have 1,000 people starting on bikes in a straight row, and it's a dead engine start, and you've got a flagman out about a half a mile that he drops the flag, everyone starts up and goes, and you're off for the races. And I got hit, I dropped into a ravine, and a guy came in behind me with his wheel, and I got hit in the back and fell down, and that's all she wrote. And I didn't know what happened to me, but I was laying there on the ground with a mouthful of dirt, and here I am. So lots of rehab. I went to first to a major medical center where they did a surgery that night on a laminectomy to make sure there was no bone chips floating around, because one of my high school friends thought they saw me moving my toes, and the neurologist said, maybe I better get in there, make sure there's no further damage, which was probably a mistake because of the swelling at the time.
Yeah.
And then I left there after a month and went to Rancho Los Amigos, where I spent the next 6 months of my life and learned life in a wheelchair. And they did a great job teaching me everything.
Yeah. And 15 and a half, what was going through your mind? I mean, in the sense that 1973, wheelchair users were not common to see out and about, and accessibility was probably awful. What was it like for that first year being so young at 15 and a half?
First of all, I was very adaptable because of my youth. It wasn't like I was set into my career like as a doctor or a dentist or something where the accident blew my career. So I was happy about that. But, you're in Rancho for 6 months, and there's no stairs, and there's wide doorways, and there's toilets that are at the right height, and there's showers you can roll into, and it's a wonderful world. And then you come out and you're going, oh no, stairs and curbs and all that stuff, and trying to get a ramp in your house. It's a big thing.
That was pre, and Glenn, that was pre curb cut days too, where they actually showed you how to jump the curb.
You had driveways, no curb cuts, so you went to the nearest driveway that you could pick up. Yep. And then you went from that to like you had a curb cut on one corner, but not the other three. So you went to a driveway on those ones, and now there's curb cuts everywhere.
And you're cruising along the curb, and there's cars rushing by you. You're just waiting for an opening on the curb or a driveway, like you said.
Yeah, ready to whack you another time. So.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
but I have no complaints.
1974.
Yeah, you're right after. I was in the 701 ward, I think. There was a lot of people injured at that time. A lot of gunshots, motorcycles.
Yeah.
People diving in the pool.
Hang gliding. There was a lot of hang gliders going in, getting injured back then too, as well, because I had a couple hang gliders in my ward, in my room in the ward. So, yeah, it was. But there was a lot of motorcycle. That was.
But I tell you the one thing with Rancho that I felt truly blessed with is that when I checked out of that hospital, I was doing good. I mean, I knew how to get around in a wheelchair. I I knew how to take care of myself. And I know nowadays they check people in and out so quickly. I'm like, I don't know how you do that, how you adapt to the world. Because it was a process where I
Yeah.
went home on a weekend pass, after month 3 or, and then I would come every
Yeah.
weekend to my house so you figure out how to do it. And that transition was really good. And when I actually checked out of Rancho, 3 days later, I got a full-time job. I was like still 16 years old or whatever because it was summertime.
Yeah.
So I got
Yeah.
a full-time job because I didn't want to be bored sitting around. So and
Yeah.
it kept me busy until the next semester started in school. And that actually too, an interesting thing, like at first I didn't want to go back to my regular high school. I had all my buddies, they're all great friends. We've known each other since we were 3 years old. And I didn't want to go back to it. I thought I'll go to a different school. And then I decided, no, I want to go back and be out with my buddies. And the school district said, no, you can't. So we had to fight the school board so I could be accepted to go to the school. It's like one of their first wheelchair people at the high school. And it was interesting to get around. I had my buddy dragging me up and down stairs to get to classes,
Yeah.
and
That's
there
crazy.
there was no elevators, and they wouldn't move a class downstairs. So my buddies would get out of class 5 minutes early, come lift me up the stairs, come down, which I'm sure they would never ever do in today's world, but we have made it
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
And so uh, you get accepted into high school finally as a wheelchair
I'm
user, or
sorry.
never did? Did you ever
I'm
get
sorry.
did you ever get into high school as a wheelchair user?
No, no, no. I mean, actually, it was bicycle. Yeah, I mean, it's much later, like about 10 years ago. My shoulders were pretty much blown out, like everyone of our gender that lives in a wheelchair so long. And the doctor told me, he said, you need 2 complete shoulder replacements. And I was like, oh no, because that means going to bed for quite a while. And after this whole long thing, he said to me, he goes, but in your condition, you might be better off with what you have. And so I decided to start doing the hand cycle, and I started doing it every day. And actually, my shoulders rehab pretty much. I mean, the pain went away, and I asked him. I said it's sort of contra to me because my shoulders are so degenerated because of overuse, and now I'm really overusing them on the bicycle. How
Yeah.
come that's helping me instead of not helping me? And he said it's because you built up all the muscles around the joint and you're not stretching the joint as much and blah, blah, blah. So
Yeah.
that's a real
Oh,
recommendation is to strengthen their
yeah. Because
arms.
I know. See, that's how I feel because my it seems like I'm doing more damage using them more to work out because I get what you're saying though because I know in my therapy when I was going a few years back for the just to because the damage was getting worse they were just working on me to build the stabilizer muscles using everything
Mm-hmm.
around the rotator cuff and all that stuff. So the stabilizers is what they were trying to get me to use, and they were taping my shoulder and where the joint was already triggering, the muscles were already fired when you needed them. So, but yeah, I see. I kind of my belief is just that because when I was trying to do some working out and workouts in during the pandemic, it was just like beating up my shoulders. I was trying to keep up with some of these guys with Bobby and all that, and my shoulders would just get tired. I couldn't even lift them to hold the
Mm-hmm.
post to do different exercises. So, but you're saying it helped actually in your case.
1,000%. You know, what happened to me too is interesting. In January 2020, I was going out a doorway from my house and I fell out of the wheelchair and I was fine, because you learn how to drop yourself and stuff. So I called a buddy
Yeah.
and I said, hey, can you help put me back in the chair? Because at this point, I'm not able to lift back in the chair and stuff. So he came over with another buddy. When they lifted me up in the chair, he pulled my shoulder out of the socket. So I had a
Oh,
dislocated shoulder, and I mean that hurt like heck. I mean it's crazy, but with that, building up the muscles just helped me so much with it. I mean it's like
yeah.
I think
Okay.
swimming and bicycling is really tender on the shoulder joints, and so it's not like lifting heavy. I wouldn't want to lift heavy weights, but bands or something, that seem to be really
Yeah.
helpful. And what I do now is like my left shoulder is really bad. Like I had a brachial plexus and all types, then dislocated and this and that. But I've got it back to where it's livable now. I mean,
Yeah.
I wouldn't do surgery ever.
Yeah, well, that's same here. Same here.
I I have a little theory that maybe with your shoulders, when you started doing the hand cycle, it built up all the muscles around to help support your shoulders that were starting to give way. I mean, I kind of feel that with my hand cycle. Uh,
Mhm.
Going out like I just got done with a push around the neighborhood, and I'm getting slower. But in my hand cycle, and afterwards, I can feel it on my shoulders and everything. But after I do a hand cycle, I come back like fresh as daisy in the sense that
Huh.
my shoulders feel better, my upper body feels better. And I think it's just that easier motion with this. Something you could
Yeah.
look
No.
into, Bob.
Yeah. Well,
I
I was thinking
crave
because
getting on the bike.
yeah. What's the difference between using the bike, and I understand, the distances and all that stuff, and pushing the chair, using your regular everyday motion for the chair? Is it
Much
less
worse.
pressure on your
Much,
shoulders?
much, much worse. Yeah, much worse because
Okay.
you're hunching over and you're
Yeah.
stressing other parts of your body. I think it's much. I mean, pushing the wheelchairs. I think what damages our shoulders a lot. That and the transfers of
Oh yeah.
lifting
The
so
All
hard
transfers.
to move over. Yeah, but I
so
think
it's
like.
all
Go
well.
ahead.
It's
Sorry,
you're
Bob.
putting all
What was
the
it?
pressure. You're
Like when
putting
you're
all
doing
the
this, when you
pressure. Yeah, and
pushing
you're
like
putting all the pressure right here on this deltoid. So when you're hand
yeah.
cycling, it's actually a different deltoid over here on the side. You have
Okay.
three parts to your shoulder and three different parts of your deltoid. So you're
And
completely
you're
using a
building up
different.
your neck muscles, everything like your upper back is getting strengthened, and like I can see what my strength is, and which has helped with everyday life. I mean, the circulation
Yeah.
helps out, and it's just much better. I was afraid at first to do it, but now I crave to get on my bike every single day. I mean, it's what loosens me up to go through the rest of the day. And when I don't do it all the time, if I have a lot of appointments or something, at the end of the day, I'm like, I wish I would have gone riding today, type of thing. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's been my salvation, and luckily I live in a city now where it's flat, so I'm just all over town, and I do my business. I go to eat at a restaurant, or I go to a hardware store, or meet a friend, whatever. So I'm on my bike more than I'm in my van nowadays.
Yeah. Right on. That's good stuff, man.
And I love it. I mean,
And
I
I actually
totally love it.
and sometimes when I go see my mom and dad, they live about 5 miles from me. I'm like, might as well make a bike ride out of it. So I do a bike ride and then stop at the house and like, hey, how are you guys doing here? Okay, I'm out of here.
Mhm.
So
And I could say like being a quadriplegic, it's got to be a lot harder on your shoulders too because of the lack of certain muscle groups that you probably don't have that I feel fortunate that I've got to build up. But I mean, to
Yeah.
me, your shoulders are really delicate, and you've got to do the same thing that I'm doing to
And,
save
and
yourself and give
and he's in a manual chair without power assist.
hmm Yeah, pushing around a chair is not an easy task. I mean, it's like you're just slouching over. There's no easy way to do it. You got to put the power to the wheels, and you're just doing what you got to do to get there. It's not
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
like your form. So, and then I
yeah,
think on top of it off with the bike, I did line up with a great chiropractor that I go to weekly, and he's helped me. I mean, I don't like all the chiropractors. I've been to like numbers of them for years. For years, I did massage therapy once a week, and that saved me for a long time. And now it's just a pain in the ass to get on and off the massage table, which I would still like to do it, but I just don't do it because of that. And I go to a chiropractor. He does it right at my chair, and it's made a difference in my life. So I just keep doing whatever I can do to feel better. That's the goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
and just for everybody, is it back there? Yeah, I think so. If I can get back, it's straight behind me. But we're talking about the hand cycles that you can attach to your wheelchair, and it's electric. So something that you might want to try, Bob, in the sense that with the power, it's actually helping out your shoulders a lot. You're not putting all
Yeah.
that strain on your shoulders as well. So if you're having a rough day and you're like, "Ooh, I feel it," then you turn up the power a little bit, and add a little more
Yeah, a little
electric,
more.
and then someday,
Yeah.
like I always start out with hardly any, very little help from the motor, and then as I get going and get warmed up, and when I really want to get going and it gives me a better workout, I turn up the power all the way, and then I can really get into it
Yeah, get going.
and
Yeah.
get a lot of speed.
Yeah, my bike that I have, Bobby, is fully manual, and I know like I could have got a fully electric or a hybrid at the time, and I just chose to go with the manual one, and because I really want to keep pushing the exercise, but I will transition to a dual, electric bike. And so it's
Yeah.
like I can't go up any hills. You start losing traction on your front wheel, and it just gets harder. I mean, a slight incline, it's fine, but for the time being, I'm in a fully manual one, and it's got its ups and downs.
Okay.
It's like there's times that I wish I had a button I could push to juice me
Yeah,
somewhere.
that little extra boost there, huh?
You're kind of
I'm
like, okay,
afraid
where's
myself. Yeah, I'm just afraid myself that if I had the button, I would use it more than I want. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
and I think too the
and
good thing is with these bikes is that you can take it on and off like so easy. In fact, you showed me how you put yours on, and it's the peak. Sometimes you got to work it a little harder, but getting it on. I remember when they told me about the bikes, they go, it's like putting the kickstand down on a regular bike and dismounting. In the same amount of time, you can hook this up to your wheelchair. And I'm like, really? And it's
yeah,
pretty close to that. Not every time, but it's pretty
no,
convenient.
yeah. It's just, it's more tedious than anything because you're like, okay,
Yeah,
get it tight,
yeah,
real tight. Okay,
yeah,
now the other side,
yeah, yeah,
get it tight,
yeah,
pop
yeah,
in, and then, next, you got a checklist too because, there's been a couple of times where I start going down my driveway and I'm like, crap, I didn't turn on the battery, and the battery's like, it's hard to get my
it's way
quad
down.
fingers in there when I'm all hooked up, and I'm like, so
Hmm.
you got to have like this checklist. Okay, first turn on the power, but don't turn on that if it will take off on me. So there's another button for that. You kind of have this checklist you have to go through, and so
yeah,
so
really.
Yeah,
Glenn,
Hey,
it's a fun
I
process
was
though.
wondering,
Like to me, the ultimate goal is so fun.
if we can back up a little bit, and so you get done. You're now in your 20s. Where does life take you? In the mid 70s, and how did you end up where you are today? If we can get a little back history on you.
Yeah, I went and finished. I just decided to do business with a finance option. And at the time, I didn't have any job prospects or anything. And once I graduated, I applied to a few places and I got picked up by a bank. And I spent my entire career there, but I lent on commodities like precious metals, gold, silver, platinum, and foreign currency. So it wasn't traditional banking, but it was a wonderful job. I loved every single day that I went there. And eventually I stopped working because I could work 10 hours a day, but I couldn't do anything else, 10 or 12 hours even, sometimes more, depending on what the markets were doing. But then I'd get home and I was just like, I got to get out of the chair and get into bed, I'm done. And so I sort of, at about 42 or 43, I just made the decision, and I made enough money, fortunately, that I could afford to retire. And so that's what I did. And since then, I started investing in real estate and stuff like that to keep mentally busy. And I help a lot of friends with stuff. Um, so it's been a great ride. If you guys can give me 1 minute to go away from the camera, I got to let my grandson in the door.
Yeah,
I'll
Okay,
no
be back
problem,
in
no
two
problem.
two
no
seconds.
problem.
He's looking at me through the window. So hold on a second.
Not a problem.
So,
If it was your regular, if it was your regular kid, you just leave them out there.
yeah, yeah, let them wait. But no, so it's funny because when we at the top of the show, but 136 years when you think about it combined here,
Take a
that
nice moment.
that's even I can't even believe that. How much because you figure we're averaging in 45 years a piece here. So it's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, really crazy.
I'm back. I'm back. He's saved. Um, My grandson's 2 years old, and our daughter and grandson lives 2 doors away from us, so they were just
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
okay,
walking by
that's
to stop
nice.
by. So,
Yeah, you gotta let them in.
they're gonna go. Oh, a little 2 year old, you can't not let them in. They're like,
Yeah,
they're the joy of your
that's
life.
right.
So, yeah, a lot of fun. So anyway, I mean, back to what we were talking about, like, I enjoyed a wonderful career, and I was lucky because the guy that hired me didn't really look at the wheelchair, and most of my stuff was on the phone. So I dealt with clients for 10 years, and then I'd meet them face to face, and they're like, "Oh my God, what happened to you?" And I go, "What do you mean?" "Well, you're in a wheelchair." And I'm like, "Well, I've been in a wheelchair for 20 years now," but they never knew because I was just a voice on the other end of the phone.
Yeah,
Um,
yep.
so it was quite interesting. And then I think, there's a lot of problems when people go to work that sometimes they're not accepted in a wheelchair, but I felt, I was because I could help people with their business and stuff, but the wheelchair didn't become a factor. But I think even today's world, unfortunately, it does become a factor in some cases.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have a friend that's trying to be a lobotomy and or a lobotomist, and he's trying to get a job, and it just everywhere he goes, everybody's getting a job at him in that field.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
he
there's
says
there's like yeah, there's definitely discriminatory stuff that just goes under the radar. Is that your dog or my dog? No, good. I got mine. I'm like, do they come from behind me or from my earphone? Yeah, but unfortunately, I was fortunate. Like there's a documentary. I think it's called Camp Crip Camp or something like that, and it
Yeah,
shows about in
yeah,
the
Crip Camp.
70s of what people were doing, and that was the same time frame that I was going to college and getting a job, and I looked at how the disabled people weren't accepted in that time frame versus what I had going because I had my base of friends that, they all hung with me. They took me places. I took them places. And so I didn't have that same experience and I felt so fortunate that I didn't. Like, I just sort of mainstreamed into stuff. And, I regret it a little bit because I wish I would have cross-pollinated with the disabled community through my whole path versus coming back to it at the end. I just talked to a buddy that I went to Rancho with in '73. We hadn't talked to each other for like 50 years. I called him up, and he really helped me out at the time. And I was like, "Hey, Rich, you remember?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I tell people like you were younger than me at the time. You didn't even get through high school. I just finished high school when I got my accident." So,
Yeah.
you know, but yeah, I mean, to me, look, it's not a cakewalk to have a major disability, but life is good, in every
Yeah.
aspect. So I think that's the important part. I think with somebody that's newly injured, it's like life, your whole life's in front of you. You can make what you want of it.
Yeah.
and
And
I think
I
a
do
lot of
agree with.
that. Go ahead, Bob.
Pardon?
I just was gonna. Okay, I just was gonna add on the fact about being staying involved with the community. Like for me, because I kind of did the same thing. I got my job and went back to school and kind of separated myself, and I just went on with my life, trying to make a living and all that stuff. So when I finally retired, what 7, 8 years ago, that's when I got reacquainted, and I kind of uh, regret that I was didn't stay in connection with people in the community. It probably been a lot better for myself. Because you go through it and you just kind of deal with stuff on your own. And my friends, there's a couple of my friends that understood what I go through, but most of them don't even know half of it. What I have to kind
Yeah,
of to be
yeah.
someplace at 6 o'clock in the morning. They don't understand what time I'm getting up to doing the program, and and then I'm there. So, but that was one of my big regrets, and because you figure I got hurt in '74, probably broke away like a year and a half, 2 years later, and didn't get reacquainted until 2018, and that's when I started getting involved with Triumph and meeting Bobby and guys like that. So and it's funny because the difference with your friends. I mean, the stuff that we talk about at lunch or just bullshitting around, is completely different than what I have with my able-bodied buddies. There's there's
Oh
no
yeah.
there's no boundaries when I'm with the guys in the chairs. When we're all hanging around just talking.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like, look, I've known guys like all my life, the whole life, and they have no clue
Yeah,
about certain things
Yeah.
of the disability, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You sort of compartmentalize it a little bit, but like now
Yeah.
in my later years, my focus is reaching out to the disabled community and trying to give back to it and trying to help people that are in the community, because I think it's so important that people hear us. You know, there's not a lot of platforms out there to do it. And you run it, like I go into the community, I don't run across guys in wheelchairs very often at all. I mean, it's like surprising to me. And,
Yeah.
you know, there's hundreds of thousands of us out there with just spinal cord injury, but we're dispersed in different areas, so we just don't see each other as
Yeah.
much. Unless you
Yeah.
go to a ball game or a concert, and we're all lined up in the one row, you know. So
Yeah. trying to get the best seat of all that you can get. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, but
You know,
you know, I mean, I
and
think
it's
that
funny.
the disabled community has a very good perspective on life and what's important and what's not, and that's what's refreshing about the community, I think.
Yeah, and to go back, I think when we first get hurt, uh, there's a there's a level that you might go to in a sense of direction. You'll go with your old friends, and then they just carry you around, or not physically carry you, but help you
Yeah.
out in the community, and life moved on. And then where I was when I got hurt a year after, I wanted to get back into sports because sports was my life, and that's what I thought I wanted to, professional athlete of some sort, or a trainer. And I went with the sports community, and you have to be you're thrust into the disabled world by being around all these
Mhm.
guys and look at
Mhm.
like, oh wow, what do you do to your chair? Oh wow, what catheter do you use? So that helped a lot too. And I know it's funny that you and Robert, a year apart, 50 years plus, and you guys had that same direction where
Mhm.
you didn't really get involved into the wheelchair, disabled community for a long time. And I just think sometimes that's the path we go. And sometimes
Yeah.
some of us need more support in trying to figure it out. So you join a lot more support groups. And then that's another way you get into it. Or you just go back to school and just get yourself back into life the way it was, just a little different.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, you know
if I
what?
had
It's
to
fun.
do it over again, if I had to do it over again, I would have made an effort to stay connected to the disabled
Yeah. Yeah.
people that I met in the community, because
Yeah.
it's so beneficial to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, there was
Because I
guys
know.
that became that I was at Rancho with became Paralympic gold medal athletes, you know, so it was available to do that. And
Oh
they're
yeah.
still there,
Yeah.
you know, in the wheelchair basketball Hall of Fame and all this other
Yeah.
stuff. So
Because you were at Rancho when Dave Kiley was there in '73, right? Yeah. That was.
He's the one that just hooked me up with my old friend, actually, because
Okay.
I was on Facebook or something, and I said, "Hey Dave, do you remember Richard?" And he's like, "Yeah, I go to dinner with him and his wife." And I go, "God, I really want to reach out to him. Tell him Glenn from Rancho." And then I got a message from Richard, the guy that I hadn't talked to about 50 years, and here's my number. Give me a call. I'm in Utah, you know. So
Wow.
we
That's
connect.
that's
It was
that's
really
great.
good to connect. You know, it's great to connect
Yeah.
back with him. So.
Well,
And there
what
was a
what
lot of
about
people along the lines.
yeah? What about Jeff Minnebricker? Do you remember him from Rancho? He was
What
doing he
was
was
it?
the rec therapist over there. Jeff Minnebricker. He was the
Oh
rec therapist
yeah.
at Rancho.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because
He
he
was
started
he
like
was
one of the first fixed frame wheelchairs with the Quadra or
yeah.
whatever,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the
yeah,
thing.
that's right. And him, let's see, it was Jeff Minderbricker and Ed Owens were the rec therapists
Ed
there with it,
Owens,
and they were, yep, yeah,
guy was worth a
those
million
were,
bucks. I mean,
oh yeah, they were my mentors.
he
Looking back, Jeff and Ed were both, there to keep you motivated. Ed Owens had a class, the summer class at Cal State LA for wheelchair basketball that was accredited and all that. So I mean, it was the time of that was 74, 75. So but yeah, I kind of like to get a hold of because I know Ed passed in 2008 or something, but Jeff Minnebricker is the guy that I would love to get a hold of or
yeah
bump into or something,
yeah
but
yeah. I think
so
somebody was telling me about him. Like he's still around somewhere. I don't know where, but
yeah.
he's still
Yeah,
around
I
somewhere.
hear he's
But
still
you know,
out and
it's funny.
about, but
when you think about it, like when I got checked out of Rancho, my first wheelchair was 55 pounds. And Everson Jennings fold-up wheelchair. It was like a tank.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like
Oh yeah.
unbelievable and stuff. And you'd slap that thing into the back seat of a car, you're about dead after doing it. So, you love
Yeah.
these really lightweight chairs we have now.
Oh yeah, that's kind of what I drive for. But yeah, because there's only two wheelchair manufacturers, stainless wheelchairs and Everson Jennings, and that I
Yeah,
had a stainless chair that would constantly crack the
but
frames. So Jeff,
But
go
look
ahead.
at all of the progress that was made in this whole industry for the disabled was because people found a need. They were disabled themselves, and so they developed a wheelchair they could use or different, tools
Yeah,
on it. And it's become a huge industry now. And too bad some of the guys that made it happen didn't ride the whole wave of,
yeah,
today's marketplace,
yeah,
but they started it all. So it's really cool to
yeah. Well,
see. And there's more to
the quad
come.
yeah, the quadra chair is the one that kind of just was the revolutionary, right? Exactly, with the in terms of sports, getting lightweight, and even though still you look back now, I have some old pictures that I see, partially the chair, and it was just it was the rigid chair, no brakes on it, and pretty simple and lightweight,
Well, and
and colors.
you got you got to remember that was a blessing for us here in Southern California to have a quadra. But really, once Marilyn Hamilton took on and put together the quickie with her friends and
Yeah,
developed the quickies and mass marketed, I mean, finally, people across the U.S. was finally getting a decent rigid chair that was probably reduced down by what 20 pounds, if not
At
more.
least, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So,
And plus,
you know,
plus when
at
you
least,
pushed it, the push wasn't going to the flex of the wheelchair; it was going right to your wheels. You
yeah,
pushed those
exactly.
little
yeah,
tanks around, and all the energy went to that wheelchair flexing.
Exactly. So if you're ever wondering, sitting in your manual chair watching this and wondering about the chair that you're sitting on, it really started with one, E&J, but then two, it was that Quadra wheelchair. And it's very hard to find any pictures online when Robert and I were digging for them. And it's not a great picture to see the
yeah.
Quadra
There,
chair, but
there is. I think there's a story out there on the Revolution, and it talks about the quadra chair. And I think it was in New Mobility magazine. And I think if you do some checking on there, some search on there, there's a story, and it kind of tells a story about what the quadra chair was up against when he was trying to develop it. That people weren't taking it serious and all that because it was such a new vision to have
Hmm.
somebody, the people that are active and using a chair that's more conducive to that.
But even look
yeah.
It's a
like
good story.
nowadays with the wheels that we have available to us, with the spokes aren't breaking and the spokes aren't getting loose and your wheels stay true and they're rolling good. The
Yeah.
bearings are better. The
Oh
axles
yeah.
are everything's gotten better. It's really great how much easier it is to maneuver around in a wheelchair these days. And
Oh
Absolutely.
yeah.
there's more to come, because I see these new chairs where they're like a Segway type of a thing, where you just lean and the chair goes, or you see some of these things
Yeah,
that are
I
going up
love
and
those. I love those things.
yeah,
And the,
and
Well,
then
and
some are
now,
going up and down stairs, like you pull up to the stairs and like
yeah,
a track comes out and you go up the stairs. So it's more to come, guys. So.
oh yeah,
yeah.
yep,
So, you go into workforce, you get married. Ellen's your first and only wife, I would assume, but
Number two, but she is number one now. I'll tell you
number
that for
one. There you
sure.
go. Okay, good.
she,
Yeah.
she
And
should have been.
I
She
like
should have
that.
always been number one.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
And both of our wives are Ellen, so it was always going to be easy for me to remember. But so,
yeah.
talking about that aging with a disability, what were some of the rough times of, getting older? Would you find that was tough and you wish you would have known something or something you can give advice for our audience?
that's a good one.
When I look back, like I blew through my 20s, no problem. I blew through my 30s, no problem. I went for 40s, no problem. I had 50, and I was like, uh,
Like the
and then,
wall, you hit that
then
wall.
I had 60 and I went, oh my God, so
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah.
that transition was just like when I was going through that phase and I was working, I was traveling in the Far East. Like I was in China when China wasn't even open because I was invited by the Bank of China because I did business with their government mints and stuff. And so I got dragged around on the Great Wall in China in my manual chair, and it was like people were taking pictures of me on the Great Wall. So all through that time frame, I didn't have a care in the world. And then I got 60, and I was like, holy shit. But you know
Yeah.
what? Now with the bicycle, I've adapted to that, and I think now is actually the best time of my life. Even with all of it behind me, I love every single
Yeah.
day.
That's good to hear. That's good to
Yeah.
hear.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
What
You
about
had one of my, I was just
go
going to
ahead, Bobby?
say, Robert, yeah, it's one of my dreams that I'm not wanting to go many places, but to go see the Great Wall of China and be on it one time, that's a
Yeah.
dream of mine.
Yeah.
I just always
Yep.
look at that just the, I mean, how long it goes and how much work and years
Yep.
and thousands of
Yeah.
Just
years to build something
so
that
many,
anybody.
so many stairs, so many stairs, so many stairs. Like, at the time I was there wasn't open for Americans to travel there unless you were a business guest. And so there was a lot of Europeans and Russians and this and that. And they just took me under their wing and started dragging me all over that wall and taking pictures of me and with me and this and that. And you go to the Ming Tomb, you go to all these historic places in the Forbidden City and stuff. It's pretty crazy. And not wheelchair accessible, but pretty, you make it when you're younger. I don't think I'd want to do it
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
but
So
traveling throughout the
It's a
Far
lot of
East was
work.
pretty
It's
good.
a lot of work.
yeah,
A lot of work, and that is resilient. Hey, I got a
I
question
don't
you,
about
like,
so over the year. So over the years, what about your issues with your bladder, UTI, your bowel programs? Have they gotten better? Have you got them dialed in? They're getting worse. They're getting a little more difficult, or what's the deal with how have you handled that over the years?
that's a good the good part of it. I originally started out before. I don't have any spasticity because I did what's called a spinal cord infarction. I didn't nick my cord, but the blood supply got cut off. So I don't have any spasticity. I don't have a spastic bladder or anything. And so at the time, back in the time, I started off with what's called Credane, where you just push your bladder to urinate. And I did that
yeah,
for
Yeah.
many, many years. And then I went to intermittent catheterization for another like 25 years and had good time, rare infections once in a while. And about 4 years ago, when I dislocated my shoulder, and sort of as a result of it, I went through a Foley catheter and have had zero problems, no leakage, no nothing. I mean, I'm stable with that. And it's the same with my bowel program. I've had, fortunately, knock on wood, in my lifetime, 3 times where I had a problem. Two of them were on an airplane, unfortunately, and it was a huge problem. I mean, it was like bad. I was flying back from Japan on one of them, and I must have got food poisoning right before I got on the plane, and it was like 11 hours of pure hell. So,
Oh
but
man.
other than that, I've been fortunate. I've been stable. I mean, and I know that's a big problem for many people, most people, and bladder infections are a son of a bitch because they're just no fun and they're scary and you're burning up the antibiotics and everything and I've taken a lot of antibiotics in my lifetime. I mean, there's a time where I was eating antibiotics like M&Ms and I haven't become resistant to them, so I feel fortunate with that. And that's what kept us going so long too, is that the antibiotics have, they've outpaced us. They've been ahead of our
Yeah.
curve, which has saved it. So, and I just hope that continues because that's a big issue. And I think managing your bladder, like, that's where you get problems, the kidney problems and this and that. If your bladder's backing up too much pressure or this or that. And I've just been lucky, knock on wood. So I
Yeah.
feel blessed with that.
Definitely. Yeah. Because
Yeah,
I know
yeah,
for me right
the
now, I'm
hardwood right there.
yeah. Because I know
exactly.
for me, I'm going. My, I was going through the UTI issue just for the last 8 9 months or a year, whatever it was. It just was there. Now I'm back on track with what it. But I've always had the bowel issues, just kind of trying to deal with that because me working the hours I work, there's different shift changes, and I can never really be consistent. So, but what I'm going through right now is just the prostate issues. So I got some testing
Mm.
coming up, biopsies and stuff like that. So I don't know anybody that has anything with the prostate that I've come across yet, but I'm finding out little by little with what I'm going through. So we'll see kind of where it goes because there's not a lot of research done with the prostate and intermittent catheterization and the numbers of your PSA count and all that. So the doctor said there
But
just isn't enough to really know what's going on out there.
that's what we're lucky with. We're living so long that we're coming up with these other normal problems that people have that
Yeah,
before
exactly.
before we didn't hang around so long. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's a double-edged sword. I mean, aging with a disability, and I've always said to me like my original disability was less concerning than aging with a disability in some aspects, because it's like you sit there and you say, is it because of my age or because of my disability? People talked about
right,
they had
right.
post polio syndrome, like they could do something for many, many years, and all of a sudden one day they can't do it anymore. And they didn't know why, and the doctors didn't know why, and it's just a natural transition of aging with a disability. So,
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
yep.
it's almost like they it's a post polio thing, and it hits them almost like MS kind of. They just
mhm,
completely just start. Their body just says, "Okay, we were done," which is
mhm,
Yeah.
scary. Real quick, I was going to shout out the in our chat TLC Roy. He's not here with us anymore. He had to go, but glad he was able to join us at the beginning. Quad Trials and Theories, what's up, buddy? Angry Quad, he's calling you a badass there, Glenn. And then your friend
right on.
Sharon McMillan, she's on,
Mhm.
and I know we had a couple others. I lost the. Can you see who else we had on, Robert?
Is
Yeah,
grandma
no,
out there or
that's
not?
it. Yeah,
Grandma's
grandma's
still
out
with
there.
us. Yeah, Grandma's still with
Yeah.
us, and I think Alpine was with
Hey,
us. That's who I was going
grandma.
to say.
I'll see you at the
Mm-hmm.
next game or somewhere.
There you go. Um, not to. I don't know. You don't have to really talk about it, but I know there was a skin issue because you were helping me out with um, something they tried for you. So you just like a lot of us, you went through a pretty bad pressure sore.
Yeah, well, what happened was I didn't actually get a pressure sore, but I got a fistula, and I thought I got a bladder infection because I got a real high fever and I was feeling like crap, and didn't think to look at my bottom. When I finally got a mirror and I looked at it, I was like, oh my god, it had just ripped out
Yeah,
the entire left
scary.
side of my butt. And so it's the same as a
Yeah,
pressure sore. It did the same damage, and it was stage 4, so down to the bone. And I had tracks going everywhere. That infection just ripped me apart. And at the time, I thought, well, they do flap surgeries. You go up, you're in bed for 8 or 10 weeks, and then you go on with your this. But that's not the protocol.
Hey, did we lose everybody?
Yeah,
I,
I you guys, all of a sudden I
I
zapped out, so I still can't see
yeah,
you, but
because I had to hit
got back.
reconnect and it brought me back up, but I was the only one
Okay.
on there, so I wasn't sure.
I think we're still live.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. It
Yes.
just went door.
Yeah, I don't
It
know what happened.
just the connection. It's just our connection.
Yeah.
Well, and
I don't
it's
see any.
right now our host is uh, away on a trip. Who's running our show, so he might have at a bad spot in the house where he was at.
But we can still hear Glenn, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Are you
hear
there,
you guys
Glenn?
now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I
We
think
don't have your.
Shawn's probably working on it.
Yeah.
Anyway, back if we can hear each other. The getting over
Yeah, we can
sore
hear
is the last thing you want to do. Stay away from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how long did that last? That open sore
Fistula. Yeah.
Like 4 years.
fistula? Yeah.
Wow. So did
4
you
years.
have bone infection along with that, Glenn?
Well, they thought originally I had osteomyelitis or whatever, and then
Yeah.
they decided to do a biopsy, which they did with radiology, which was like non-invasive as far as surgical procedure, and then they came out that I didn't have any bone infection, which I was thrilled about, of course. But yeah, I got lucky. I mean, because that's a big problem when you get these things.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
I know I had a stage 4 wound. I had the muscle flap, but they had to go to it went to the bone, but they had to shave the bone and then kind of do whatever they do after for the muscle flap. Because I was down, I was just in the hospital for 2 months, but then I was down still at home, for a few months, gradually getting into it with the healing, right?
hmm And that's the problem. You put these flaps on, and you don't know if the circulation is good and how long it's going to hold. I think I've
Yeah.
heard like years ago that the 5 year point, people would break down again and not have success and do a second and a third one. But these things are very limited that you can do. They're very major surgery actually too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And you had the same thing as like I did. They thought I had osteomyelitis and it wasn't a pressure sore as well. It was a seroma, they called it, where water fluid collection, and they said it's probably you banged it on something, your bottom, and just
hmm
it developed some fluid under there. And so when they drained it, they're like, oh, it has a little bit of infection. So they opened it up, cleaned it out, and I was doing great, except one little area wasn't opening up. And then they're like, you probably have a bone infection. And so they opened me back up, went down in there, and found that there was no bone infection.
Yeah.
So then once they closed it up, then it was all over. It opened up
Yeah.
and everything.
Yeah, to me, it's like the one best news you hear is no bone infection, but to have to go through that procedure to determine it is not
Yeah. I
fun.
know.
Well, especially when I was like maybe 2 weeks of the whole thing closing up, no problem. I just went there for an appointment. I mentioned to him, well, it's still draining just a little bit, and he's like, really?
That was it.
So,
Uh-oh.
and then he ordered he ordered the MRI, and because there was trauma there from the surgery, they we almost got you back. They he thought for sure there was osteomyelitis that was showing up on the MRI. So that's why they opened it up. And yeah, I was happy, but then all of a sudden I wound up laying in my bed for 6 months thinking it was going to heal. Never healed. And I even asked Glenn about the stuff that you told me about. And I talked to the wound care center and they just said, yeah, well, we check your bottom once a month for infection. You have no infection. There wouldn't be a reason why to have that stuff. So they just said, yeah, if we ever see a little bit of bugs in there, then maybe we might try that. That's a good idea. They said
Well,
it's just old school. That's all.
yeah, I think that's true for the Dakins, Bobby. But I think for
Yeah,
the other stuff, um, like that you're packing it with, has nothing to do with infection. You're just promoting, granulation and skin healing. The
yeah,
Dakins is to get rid of the bacteria, and if there's no bacteria infection, you don't need it. But
Yeah.
the other thing is the Aquacell and the other silver agitate stuff is what you're packing the wound with, and that stuff is really helpful.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's anything to do with infection or bacteria or
Right.
anything, which we're prone to get. That's the problem. It's like you get these wounds, and I think they call it pseudomonas is the bacteria that gets in all these things, and then your healing just blows up a lot. It just almost to a standstill till the bacteria is gone. But
Yeah.
I think with anyone, the best thing is get a good wound care nurse, you get a good wound care doctor, make sure you got an
Yeah.
infectious disease on the team, and do everything you can to relieve the pressure, get a good cushion, and get rid of these things. Like I've been fortunate that ever since day one, all of my tissue was healthy and good looking. There was no necrotic tissue or anything like that that needed to be debrided and stuff. So
Yeah.
and it's always like first thing when my surgeon looked at it, she goes, "Oh my God, this is all good looking tissue. This is great." And I'm thinking, good, it's not a pressure sore, but it's the same
Yeah.
result. You got a deep
Yeah.
wound.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's what came down for me too. Yeah, I know. Angry Quad, 6 months. It was, oof, it was a nightmare. And,
I know, man.
uh,
And just
it was,
just that infection, the part of the dealing with the infection, I can't explain how lousy you feel. You'll wake up and you got a good hour, and then the rest of the time you're just like no energy, just feeling lousy again, hot and all that. That was a rough thing to go through.
But I
yeah.
think too,
And
like when I got the infection on my rear that caused the problem I have, like to me, you get a fever over 101, you better go to the emergency room. Here, if it's a
Yeah.
bladder infection, let them
Yeah.
check you out. I waited another 2 or 3 days and I blew it on that.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's good advice. I'm just about to say the same thing, Glenn. I mean, like you said it best. Have a good wound care center. Even if you don't have an issue right now, do some research just in case you ever come across where, ooh, this doesn't look right, and make an appointment, because really at the end of the day, it's going to save you weeks and months of aggravation, because you just had it looked at and they're like, oh yeah, it's nothing, just put a Metroplex pad over it, give it a little cushion, and you'll be fine. Or add a little of this medicine and you'll be fine. And it's going to save you the long run, because they said, and I talk to them all the time about it. They're like, every time we get somebody, it's it just takes forever to heal, because they went there when it was stage 4. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, our healing isn't as good because of our condition, so that slows it down. And then, fortunately, for this entire process, I've been up in the chair, not full time like I would normally like, but enough to live a good active life. And
Yeah.
getting in bed is sort of counterproductive because then you start losing your muscle tone and your ability to transfer, and your body organs aren't good. It's like, so it's a real balancing act. And I've talked about this with my doctors, and they've been very supportive and helpful, and felt that as long as we're making forward progress on it, that we'll continue the course.
yeah. Hey, Glenn, we're going to go through our shows, what's coming up on our shows here in the next week. But if you can hang up and then reconnect again with that link I gave you, then your camera will probably work and we can properly say goodbye with your good looking face.
Yeah.
I'll
There
hang
you
up and
go.
come. Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Just hang up and then reconnect. Okay,
Yeah.
Bobby, give a rundown.
Yeah, not a problem. So today's Thursday. we have a holiday weekend, so wishing everybody out there a great Memorial Day weekend, whatever you might be doing, if it's a little barbecuing. Um,
Be
Thank you
safe.
so
Just
much
be
for
safe.
everybody joining us. Yes, and be safe. We got, like I said, Angry Quad and Daryl in the house as well. Quad Theories. Grandma is here. If you didn't see that, Glenn, Grandma's in the house, Chair Life, and
Awesome.
Sharon and others. So next week we have the Monday will be a holiday, so I'm not sure if we're going to have Hell Wheels on or not. We'll see what he's up to. But if not, if he is available at 5 o'clock every Monday, then it's Shawn and Tom and myself. We're back 3:30 on Tuesday. And then Wednesday, we have Tom and his T Fizzle Gaming. Looks like he had a pretty awesome show the other day. And then next Thursday, that's that fourth or the fifth Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm not sure what we're doing, but the following Thursday after that will be our Golden Oldies, rolling with the Golden Oldies. And they're always they got some wisdom behind them, and so definitely check them out. So, um, and then I don't know if you want to do our sponsors, Robert, one last time.
Sure. Mobility professionals and urology professionals. Um, if you need mobility, rehab equipment, anything that you need for Southern California in the area and the region, check them out. Call them up, let them know your insurance and see if they can work with you. And for your urological needs across the country, no matter where you're located in any of the states, urology professionals will take care of you. And again, they're experts in what they do. They know they're part of the community and understand um, even the battles of just dealing with your insurances. So they'll help you and guide you through. So make sure you get in touch with the mobility professionals and urology professionals.
Yeah, yeah, and actually, Hell Wheels will be on Monday, so he will be live. But unfortunately, he's dealing with another UTI. So there's another
Yeah.
person constantly been
Hmm.
Yeah.
dealing with UTIs. So uh, wish you all the best, Sarab. Hopefully you get rid of that pretty quickly here. Um, Before we wind
So,
down, go ahead.
that's one thing because you're talking about UTIs. Like, I met a really good urologist years ago, and he gave me like a home brew. He said, "Take a hold on, boy." Um, he gave me a home
By the way,
brew.
nice flower.
Yeah, and he said, take a fresh squeezed lemon and squeeze it in over some ice and add a little water to it and sweeten it up like with a non-sugar sweetener. And for some reason, that's helped me for years. I mean, when I see a problem coming up, I grab a fresh lemon, squeeze it out, a little water, sweeten it, have a great drink, and it sure seems to help with the bladder issues, keeping away
So
from
is it
those
just like
UTIs.
just a cup of water, volume?
Yeah,
Is that
just
what
an
you need?
8 ounce thing. Take one fresh lemon, squeeze it into
Yeah.
an 8 ounce cup of water, and sweeten it up. Little ice, and you got a lemonade. It helps. All that ascorbic acid is really good for your bladder. So if you're having
Yeah.
trouble with that,
Yeah.
I would try that. It's something about the fresh lemon really helped me a lot.
Yeah,
Good. That's good to
and
know. Good
definitely,
to know.
I'm just been this big component because I haven't had a UTI and my mom's phone's ringing.
Knock knock on wood. Knock on wood.
Knock on wood. But I haven't had a UTI in a long time now, and because I doubled my vitamin C, and I just find
Yeah.
that
Hmm.
that's been helping me a ton. Um,
Drink the
it
water,
doesn't
drink the water, boys.
Yep.
and
Yep.
drink the water. You know,
No,
with that, we're talking about UTIs. We're going to be wrapping up. I know you got your grandson there, but any last word of advice, Glenn?
you know what? It's like I think try to stay healthy, try to stay active, stay connected with the community. I think stay connected with Live to Roll and on the podcast. I mean, I listen to it faithfully on my bike and try to grab a little pointer here and there, and it's been very helpful. And so there, you never can stop learning. And life is good. You know,
Right on. That's good to
we
hear.
got a full life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good to
And
hear,
you
Glenn.
guys
We
are
got to
great.
have you as a guest.
I love listening to you guys and meeting you both, and so it's all good.
Yeah, it
Good
definitely
deal.
was nice
Thank you
to meet
very much,
you.
Glenn. Thank you for sharing your experiences, and we'll have to get you back on during the rest of the year just to kind of do a part two and just continue just discussing, aging with a disability right here on Live to Roll.
Yeah.
Anytime,
And
anytime.
hopefully next time we won't have any tech issues. So thanks
Yeah,
everyone
yeah.
for enduring a little bit of the tech issues. Hit that like button. Have a safe, wonderful holiday weekend, and remembering our troops and our soldiers out there. So definitely be safe. Take care, Glenn. Thank you so much, and live to roll.